Hello, all, and welcome to the Movie Bears podcast. I'm Brad Harris, and as often as we can make it happen, because life does happen sometimes, I enjoy getting together with two very incredible folks to talk about movies. Something we love to do. We've been gone for a couple weeks. Film festivals and life and sickness and work travel, all kinds of stuff just converged. And so we've been gone for a couple weeks, but we're glad to be back. And we're going to be chatting all things Ad Astra tonight, or as we like to call it, Daddy Issues in Space.
Dad Astronaut.
Something like that. We've also got some movie news to talk about, and I'm anxious to get into that, and I know you guys are too. And when I say you guys, I mean the aforementioned co-hosts. Jim Pugliafico is here with us on the road for work.
I am on the road. Yeah, thanks, babe. Glad to be back after a couple of weeks. Will, it's great to see you back here. We're anxious to hear about your adventures as well as we did on we did see the posts on Twitter and stuff. But babe, to your comment about it's still each week when we bring you the podcast. It's just each week that we can do it. That's what it is.
Oh my God, Jim's got that really good legalese. He is when you're listening to the radio and someone rattles off the super quick disclaimer at the end of an ad. Jim just snuck that one in there. Good job.
Yeah.
Jim's like, and by every week we mean every week that we can possibly make it if there are any kind of absences.
Yeah, we should definitely put that together.
Nice. Well, you heard from him already, but Will, welcome back to you as well. I know you recorded a whole episode on Fantastic Fest, so that's where we can find all that goodness. But answer one question: have you caught up on sleep?
Gosh, yes, maybe, kind of. I mean, look, they've moved around some things with the schedule this year, so that a lot of the air quotes midnighters started at 11, and a lot of the earlier shift movies started a little bit later in the day. So I was getting 6 or 7 hours of sleep a night every night.
That's good.
Which is rare for these types of things. So yeah, I'm caught back up, but fortunately it didn't kick my ass the way it normally does.
Well, that's good.
For us middle-aged moviegoers, 6 or 7 hours of sleep is about normal.
Oh my gosh. I know there's been times at South by Southwest where we've gotten back close to 3 a.m. because a movie ran till 2 a.m. and then we had to be up and out the door before 7.
7?
Yeah.
6:30.
For the lunches and breakfast and express passes. So yeah, I mean, this was a more restful experience. One of those things where it's fun to chat movies with people, but I'm excited to be back at sort of home base to chat movies with the two of you.
Us as well.
Glad to have you back.
For sure.
And I know I'm going to get to that. Brad, you mentioned it. One of our upcoming episodes is going to be Will's basically vlog from Fantastic Fest. And I'm the one who's going to be doing the finishing editing touches on that. So I can't wait to listen.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'm excited
Indeed.
to one, for you to hear it, but I'm excited to talk about some of those movies with you once we get to that point in the release cycle.
Cool.
For sure. Cool. Well, we got a big show tonight. Lots of non-Fantastic Fest to talk about. But looking forward to listening to that episode. Well, before we dive in, though, just a quick shout out. We've got some folks who are joining us live. They're in the live chat right now. Kevin Ryan is with us. Hey, Kevin. Good to hear from you. Welcome. Glad to have you with us. And for anyone else that's hanging out in the live chat, you can't see us waving right now because we're still waiting on YouTube to get their shit together, but we're waving at you right now. I threw them under the bus. I grabbed them by their pants and their shirt and wholeheartedly just tossed them under the bus. Sorry, YouTube, not sorry.
People are still able to hear us right now, so I don't think YouTube heard us, unfortunately. Otherwise, they would have grabbed that giant MBP plug and just been nope.
Right. Anyway, we have a big movie discussion coming up. But before we get to that, it's been a hot minute since we've done some movie news. So, Jim, Will, how do you feel about talking about some movie current events?
There's got to be something out there that we can talk about, and discuss and get some comments from our listeners, maybe?
Yeah, it's almost like this was sort of a lightning rod week for some major things happening. So
Maybe.
yeah, what's happening in the news?
We're gonna find out here in just a couple seconds when we dish up some movie news. Do. You do a way better projector sound effect than I do.
Either that or cat purring.
Yeah, exactly. Same thing.
Why not both? Maybe that is the sound that a projector makes.
Dun, 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 dun.
Meow. Anyway. So movie news. Let's see. Several weeks ago on the Movie Bears podcast, we had a conversation all about Sony and Marvel going their separate ways, Spider-Man being pulled from the MCU, no more new Spider-Man movies. And guys, I don't know if you remember, but we predicted that was going to last all of 18 and a half minutes. And it went 2 weeks, so admittedly, it's a little longer than that. But recently news came out that Sony and Marvel have reached an agreement. We're getting more Spider-Man movies. We're getting more Spider-Man in the Avengers. I don't think we know the full extent of all the financials. There's a lot of information and misinformation being bandied about. But, guys, Marvel, Disney, Sony, they're all orgying it up again on their giant wads of cash where Spider-Man is concerned. Are you really surprised?
I am not surprised at all. I was reading a little bit about some of the details about the deal that's leaking out. Something about a 25%, share that Sony is going to put up for 25% of the take or something like that. And Marvel is going to produce, Disney Marvel is going to remain in and produce at least one more Spider-Man film. So yeah, we're kind of back into that mode again. I got to be honest, like I'm not like holding my breath on any of this stuff. I mean, I think we knew it was going to come back. It's back to kind of to where it was. We're going to see at least one more Spider-Man movie. So I think the fans are probably very happy at this point. Whether it's a fair deal, let's maybe get into that a little bit more. Will, you probably have some ideas on that?
Yeah, I mean the whole thing is pretty weird, right? Like the original deal that Disney had was they were going to make I think it was like 5% and then all of the merchandising. And then they pushed back and said, okay, we want 50-50. Sony took their ball and went home. And I think just like what we were talking about when we first broke this news item is that these types of things tend to be bad PR when they play out in the public arena for too long. And there was very likely a deal that was struck really soon after that, but just sort of like a cooling down period so that both companies could save face. We now have this new deal where it's a 25% stake instead of the 5 or the 50%, but with Disney putting up a little bit more money. It's the numbers are a little squishy, but the thing that sucks about this whole thing, for me at least, is these things happen all the time, right? Think about like your favorite, like whoever your favorite film company is, like I'm a big fan of A24 films. Like when they're talking, like when publishers and distributors and filmmakers are all doing, there's a lot of discussions and a lot of who's making what that goes on behind the scenes. And it's just part of the business. And this was part of the business. But because it played out where it did, people took sides and they cast Disney as the heroes of this narrative and they cast Sony as the villains of the narrative. And you saw a lot of people celebrating like, yay, those bad guys Sony's got fucked, go Disney. When realistically it was a company that makes all the money in the world now has a way of making more of the money in the world. And it's a little gross that not that the financials played out the way they do. It was going to happen. That's the way business worked. But it's a little uncomfortable for me that we that we collectively chose sides in this whole thing. Like Disney doesn't need us like celebrating them as the underdog heroes because they are a fucking monopoly. And I say this as someone who loves the Spider-Man movies. Like, don't get me wrong.
Well, so I guess, I mean, before, well, I want to hear what Brad has to say about it, but are you happy, business dealings aside and monopoly aside, are you happy from a creative and entertainment standpoint, from a fan standpoint?
Yeah, absolutely. I think Tom Holland is a great Spider-Man, and I think that Disney Marvel has done a great job of sort of tapping into some of the things that work so well about the character and some of the things that are sort of new to this MCU version of Spider-Man. He's not the same Spider-Man that we've seen before. He's, he has his own quirks and his own character traits. So I like what they've done with him, and I want to see more. And I'm excited that I'm going to get to see more. It's more just like kind of the way it played out that was uncomfortable for me.
Yeah, I mean, they really set this whole thing up as like a trilogy of Spider-Man movies, right? Like, it won't spoil Spider-Man Homecoming, but the end of that movie basically seems like a direct lead-in, right, to a third movie. And I don't know. I was pretty intrigued by that stinger at the end of Spider-Man 2, and I was like, oh my god, like the third movie could be so great. And then when the whole thing like dissolved and fell apart, I don't know. As a fan, I was just a little bummed that we might not get like the conclusion to that. But then also as a fan, I was like, there's no way that this is gonna last. Like, it may not be a publicity stunt, but like they all want to rake in the money as much as possible. So, I'm sure Mom put them both in a room and made them hug it out until, they figured it out. So the giant, superhero orgy money continues. There'll be many, many webs shot in the future, it sounds like, as a result. Mm-hmm. So,
yeah.
Yep.
At least one more movie.
Yeah. At least one more Spider-Man movie and a confirmed appearance in whatever the next Avengers movie is. Or what I read from the Disney release. But that's not to say there may not be more beyond that, So it's an ever-changing situation. But there you go. They kissed and made up, so.
Yeah, and I think for me, it's just like I'm divorcing my moviegoer side of the feelings from my, feelings for these corporations. Especially where it comes to Disney and Marvel and, that giant conglomerate that's seems to be becoming bigger and owning, 90% of everything that hits the big cineplexes these days. I'm having growing, I don't know, resentment toward them, especially when they keep kicking out sequels and remakes. I'd rather see, I'll be honest with you, Will, you mentioned A24. They're a spectacular creative film production company right now. I'd like to see more smaller companies, producing non-sequel, non-remake kind of stuff with new ideas. So that's where my excitement lies as a moviegoer, not with what Disney's going to put out next. I mean, Frozen 2 and blah, you name it, whatever.
Especially in an era when one of those smaller, air quotes, I don't know, production company is the Fox Searchlight, which is the spinoff of 20th Century Fox that was their sort of like indie and, low to mid-budget film arm, is now absorbed by Disney. And a lot of the rumblings that we've heard is that, of course, the films that are already in production and are already slated are still coming out. But there's been some sort of like leaked behind-the-scenes conversations of some Disney execs like scratching their heads at how to put some of these films out. And that bothers me because there's, Fox Searchlight puts out some high quality, kind of unique, weird shit. And I think the film landscape needs those types of films in addition to the big blockbuster things. And the more Disney absorbs those and the more they have to sort of say what fits our mold and which doesn't, I just don't see that as a net positive.
I think that's probably a whole nother 30-minute conversation we could probably have. is a monopoly for movies a bad thing on the surface? Seems like definitely.
Yeah, we don't want to get
You know,
into that right now.
but
yeah.
that's
We
a
won't
lot,
pass
but
go. We won't collect our $200. I think people probably know where we stand on that point,
I think
to be
so.
fair.
I think so. But more Spider-Man swinging our way, so we'll just hope it's still
Frozen 4.
Oh goodness.
Olaf's tepid adventure.
Olaf.
Well, speaking of superhero movies, I do believe, Will, you wanted to talk about something superhero question mark related.
Yeah, it's definitely superhero related. There was another major superhero news item this week that I almost brought to the table, but honestly, the big business and kind of the shitty stuff that's happening right now has just been a little soul grinding. And so I wanted to bring something that actually had me excited, and it's a smaller piece of news, but whatever. The trailer for the new Birds of Prey, and the Fantabulous Emancipation of One Harley Quinn, the new DC film, Warner Brothers DC film, came out today, and I was very impressed with it. Let's just say that. This is the character who, Harley Quinn, played by Margot Robbie, who made her first appearance in Suicide Squad, which I would put is probably one of the worst movies I've ever seen, and I'm sorry for fans of that. But I thought Margot Robbie was a good part of that. And watching this trailer, and again, it's just a trailer, you don't know, but I see a lot of tonal consistency through the trailer. Like it feels like it's one of those trailers where the movie based on the trailer looks like it has its own identity and it knows what it is and it knows how to veer into fun. I'm excited for it, and I'm excited for the characters that we're going to see on screen. This is where we get to see kind of a strong female cast, characters like Black Canary, who not the same one from the Arrowverse, for any fans of that. Different, same character, but different actress. Detective Renee Montoya, who I absolutely love in the DC comics. The Huntress. Like, there's a lot of really neat characters showing up in this. I'm especially excited for Mary Elizabeth Winstead as Huntress. She looks pretty badass. But anyways, I like this trailer. I don't have any news besides trailers out. Looks kind of good. I've been absolutely ruined by DC trailers that had me excited for a movie that ended up being absolute shit before in the past, and this could be the case again. But I just want to kind of wrap up 2019 with some optimism. So as we look forward to this movie, which comes out early 2020, I'm crossing my fingers and hoping that the final product is as good as this first peek we saw today.
That's good. I got to admit, before we started talking about doing the show today and what we would cover for movie news, I had no idea what Birds of Prey was. None. Zero. So I pulled it up, and I have to apologize. I watched it on my iPhone, right? Not a great way to watch a trailer like this. Maybe later I'll watch it 3 times the size on my iPad. I don't know. But I got to say, like, I can't. So yeah, Suicide Squad was not a good movie for me. The character of Harley Quinn doesn't do it for me. I mean, it didn't do it for me in that movie. Now, whether they can do something with the character, morph her character in a different way to make it more appealing, that's fine. I know a lot of people probably love her character and are big fans. I'm just not a fan of the character as characterized. And I love Margot Robbie too. It's just the way they characterize this character in the movie, and maybe that's the way the character's supposed to be. It to me, it comes across a little grating to me. And the trailer was very high energy, but it seemed to have some of the same flavor as Suicide Squad, just with a different cast. And that cast looks great. I just don't know, man. The jury's still out for me. I am not. Put it this way, I'm not excited about it. I know we're going to see it. I can't get excited yet. Like I said, maybe when I watch it on my iPad, I'll get excited.
I wouldn't hold your breath.
No.
Sorry. I don't think seeing it like go from iPhone size to iPad size. And let's be real, you've got an iPad mini, so it's not even like you're jumping to the 12 point,
You're right. It's,
9-inch.
It's only 2.5 times the size of my phone.
Everything's different now. Up is down,
right?
left is right. Half size is full size.
Oh wow, she's really like
she's really swinging that hammer.
Acting.
Yeah. Will, I'm really glad you're excited by this. But Jim, I would say I probably fall a little closer to your side of things with regards to this trailer. And there's a couple of reasons why. So, like, I really like Margot Robbie in Suicide Squad. Easily the best part of that movie for me. Also like Viola Davis in that movie. She's coming back, by the way. Kevin Ryan in the chat just reminded us of that. So, Kevin, that's awesome. But I felt like Suicide Squad was probably like the most milquetoast superhero movie like ever. I was not super, fond of it. And Jim, you commented that this trailer feels a lot like, Suicide Squad. I actually went back and watched one of the original Suicide Squad trailers earlier because I kind of had the same feel, and I was like, oh, this kind of feels like the same thing. And it gets even more confusing now because we've got two Jokers running around, right? We've got Jared Leto Joker, and we've got Joaquin Phoenix Joker. And, I mean, I don't think they're the same character. Alternate universe Jokers, maybe?
I love the distancing that they're trying to do in this trailer. It is so obvious that they are distancing her character from Joker.
Oh, yeah.
That it's almost laughable.
Well, I think they had to, like, creative choices. Like, they didn't want to continue with Jared Leto as Joker. They don't want to have it all be interconnected, I guess. And so it just, I don't know. It gets confusing. And one of the other issues for me is, like, Birds of Prey, characters like Black Canary, Huntress, are some of my favorite comic book characters ever. But, like, I didn't know really who was who in the trailer. Like, one of the things that the original Suicide Squad trailers did well was they sort of like introduced you to the characters. Like, each person kind of had like their own moment. You know what I mean? And
that wasn't where they put them on a video screen, was it? That wasn't
partially. But like, that was Guardians of the Galaxy.
Justice League.
Oh, and
for Justice League when they did
Justice League. Sorry.
But I mean, multiple movies have done that before in trailers. Like in Guardians of the Galaxy, right? We saw them like scrolling by like one at a time, like with their name would come up on the screen, whatever. But I was watching this trailer and I'm like, oh, Harley Quinn, great! I love Harley Quinn, yay, Margot Robbie. But like, where's Black Canary? Where's Huntress? And then afterward, like I'm reading articles and I'm looking it up and I'm like, oh, that's Huntress? Really? So obviously they're going to go their own way. They're going to, do their own things. I think part of the, I don't know if I'd say issue, but having these same characters run around on CW shows right now, I think it does cause a little bit of confusion too. But the movies and those shows ostensibly are separate things. But I just felt like, I don't know, this looks like the Harley Quinn, variety show hour. And if it really is going to be Birds of Prey, I mean, that's what it's fucking called predominantly. I don't know. I guess I was hoping to get more out of some of the other characters and see them just as, important as Harley Quinn. I don't know.
Now, is the title of the movie tied to a comic itself? Are they called the Birds of Prey in the comic? Is that it?
So Birds of Prey, Super Crash Course, there was it's been a long-running comic book in DC, and it's predominantly a trio of female characters, usually Huntress, Black Canary, and Oracle, which is Batgirl, a whole different thing. The comics have really kept with the trio and usually keeping with Huntress and Black Canary and kind of swapping out the other characters. Like Poison Ivy was in there for a bit. Harley Quinn is part of the group now. But it's usually some sort of trio is the best way to look at it. Plus or minus a character.
Because, Birds of Prey always hunt in packs of 3, Jim.
Yeah.
I was thinking it was the next, was it HBO that did Serengeti? I don't know. I was thinking it was the next, the Serengeti sequel.
Birds of Prey.
I think part of what we're seeing with this trailer being especially Madcap is part of it's because, I mean, she is the only returning character, so I think she's going to she's kind of the Wolverine of the DC universe right now. If you think about it, like she is the character that is kind of pulling a lot of these movies together. And I think the other part of it is probably a bit of an overcorrection because they've gotten a lot of flack for being grimdark and super serious, and it's only through films like Aquaman, which has been was a little bit more fun, and Shazam, which really leaned into like family comedy, that I think that they're saying like, look, we're gonna play towards comedy. It worked for Deadpool, it worked for Guardians of the Galaxy. We're gonna play towards that. I think the end product, crossing my fingers based on the director Kathy Yates, I think is her name, Kathy Yan, sorry, based on her background. I think we're going to see something a little more balanced at the end of this, but I think the trailers are really serving the purpose of, hey guys, we're fun. Please don't forget that we're fun. Come over here. We're fun.
Well, hopefully trailer 2 will let us know that characters who are not Harley Quinn are also fun. Because it was just super generic and they all blended together. But it is just the first trailer. More to come. We still have a few months to go before this movie comes out. So I'm sure we'll see the whole movie before the movie actually comes out.
That's the way these things go.
No, if you want. I mean, I guess if you want to, it'll be out there. But
well,
I will try to. I think I'm going to have to, when I rewatch, I'm going to try to grasp onto something small that's like maybe not Harley Quinn, but maybe another character that I don't know, and say, oh, she looks interesting or he looks interesting. And maybe say, I want to see what the movie does with that, and maybe generate enthusiasm through that instead of my views, my existing views on Harley Quinn that come from Suicide Squad.
She's not super high rated on the IMDb, so I don't think her character is going to be as high. But I'm most excited for Rosie Perez as Renee Montoya, one of my favorite characters, and she absolutely looks the part in the trailer.
Love Rosie Perez. Yeah.
Alrighty, folks. Well, hey, we got a whole movie to talk about, believe it or not.
A movie?
And we're already 30 minutes into the show. How about that? But still plenty of time to talk Ad Astra. Before we segue into that discussion, though, just a heads up, if you're new to the format of our show and you're like, oh my god, I haven't seen Ad Astra yet, don't worry. We're gonna talk about it spoiler free for probably 10 or 15 minutes, and then we'll give you a pretty weighty, obvious heads up before we go into the stars of spoilers. I don't know. I was trying to make a cool space spoiler pun, but I don't care enough to try hard. So there you go. That's
the nebula of spoilers. How's that?
That could work.
We're gonna blast off to the spoiler zone.
Oh god, they're just getting worse, guys. They're getting worse. Anyway, so hang out with us. We'll give you warning about spoilers before we officially launch into those. But here we go.
Nice.
Our discussion of Ad Astra. All right. So, Jim, I know this was a movie that you were particularly looking forward to. I also know you happen to own a telescope and you love space. So how fitting that you kick this conversation off for us. Of course, spoiler free, but what were your thoughts about this movie? Was this worth seeing in theaters, waiting for rental, skipping? What do you think?
Well, yeah, I'll definitely get into that, my thoughts on the movie. But let me set it up first by saying, this movie, I'll read the IMDb description of Ad Astra. There's actually two descriptions on IMDb. The second one had me scratching my head, and maybe we can get to that. But let me give you the first one first. Astronaut Roy McBride, played by Brad Pitt, undertakes a mission across an unforgiving solar system to uncover the truth about his missing father and his doomed expedition that now, 30 years later, threatens the universe. So that's kind of what it is. It's basically Brad Pitt playing Roy McBride, who's kind of the chosen one for this mission to go into space and find out what's going on with this. I'll just say this mysterious phenomenon, and also phenomenon to find his father, who went on a mission 30 years ago, and they don't really know what happened to that mission. So, that's what this is. This movie also stars. Help me out, guys, because I'm stuck. Oh, I'm sorry, Tommy Lee Jones.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
Tommy Lee Jones as the father. As I think it's Clifford McBride. I think that was his name.
Yep.
Ruth Negga makes an appearance in this. Probably one of the highlights of the cast for me. Donald Sutherland is in this. It was good to see him on the screen again. And let me see who else was in this. It's John Ortiz, who I like, also appeared in this. Pretty small cast. There's a few little side players, but the movie primarily focuses on Brad Pitt and his journey into space and his mission, with a few little things that come up. In the end, this movie left me kind of cold. I was really excited for this movie. Like you said, I'm a big fan of like space exploration in film. I grew up in kind of an era, when I was really young in the 60s and stuff of the space age, right? Our biggest era of space exploration. So this movie, especially the beginning of this movie, I thought the first 2 acts were pretty good. In terms of like that space exploration stuff. Is there some weird science going on in here? Yeah, there's some weird stuff going on because this movie takes place in I would say what it would be considered maybe the near future. Maybe, I don't know, 100 years, 50 to 100 years in the future, something like that, where we've got the capability to go into the far reaches of our solar system and for exploration and searching for life in space. But like I said, this movie primarily is about Roy. Help me out with the last name again.
McBride.
Roy McBride's issues over his father, issues of abandonment and broken family and again, it really comes, as Brad has mentioned, it's like daddy issues in space. But which is fine. I'm okay with that. But I don't think the reason the movie left me cold was the fact that I don't think it paid off on that emotional arc for me. And we'll get into a lot more in spoilers. But I'll just say this movie was not. The movie looked fantastic. We saw it on a big screen. We saw it in projected in Sony
Dolby Atmos.
With Dolby Atmos, which sounded great. I thought it looked great. It had some, this isn't a space adventure movie, I will say. Although I would say it does have some elements of adventure in it, but that wasn't its focus. And if you've seen James Gray, the director's other films, like Lost City of Zed or Lost City of Z, you'll kind of get the feel for what this movie is. I got the same feeling watching that movie, because I love jungle movies too, as I did watching this movie. Just did not pay off. And I guess I just don't feel the aesthetic. I didn't get the emotional payoff that I think the movie was aiming for. So for me, it's a slight I can't recommend movie.
Okay. All right.
Slight no recommend.
Slight no recommend. That's a new thing. Like, we're going to put that on the poster of the movie, babe. Slight no recommend.
That's just falling short of its mission to excite me. Yeah.
So what you're saying is it didn't quite reach excitement escape velocity for you.
It didn't quite reach excitement escape velocity. You're right.
All right. Well, how about you? Did it take you higher than it did Jim?
Take you higher.
Kind of like Jim. Like I'm a big fan of like space travel movies. In fact, I'd put probably one of my favorite movies, period, to be set completely in space. That's 2001. But despite that being my predilection, I really wish I could have given this movie more stars. Pun intended. So let me. I will say that I came in probably a little higher than you did, Jim. Just not marginally so, I guess. So Ad Astra frustrates me because it tries to be a bunch of different things at the same time, and in the process just completely waters itself down. The best parts of it are like the soulful exploration stuff. You know, the man reaching out to try to find his father, the father who has this drive of his own to try to like see the furthest reaches of the solar system and find out if there's something else out there. These are two people who are on these steady paths, just they're not moving towards each other. I think there's something super compelling about that, because that's a metaphor that I think a lot of us can relate to, you know, like when you want that, you know, when you long for something or someone so badly, but they're just moving a completely different direction from you. I think this movie does a really, really good job of that. And the movie also has this like killer line towards the end of the movie that absolutely highlights what it's about and what it means. And it hits so freaking well. And I love that. But the film inserts a lot of things in it that I think really, really steal from the power of those moments. For starting, I feel like there's this narration that overlays everything, where Brad Pitt's character is saying what he's feeling. And the problem with that is, so we've got cinematographer Hoyt van Hoytema on this. This is the guy that shot Dunkirk, Interstellar, Her. Like, he shot the fuck out of this movie with some amazing shots. And so we can see these soulful moments of introspection or doubt or whatever it is on Brad Pitt's face. And then we have to hear his voice coming over and saying, like, oh man, I was doubting myself here. And it's just like, fuck, just like, you're already showing us beautifully. We don't need to also tell us what's going on. On top of that, you then have these moments of sort of non sequitur action sequences that are inserted into this movie out of nowhere. Like, the character makes these detours towards like something that I think it feels like the film was like, didn't trust the audience to be along with this like emotional journey, and felt like it needed to do some stuff to razzle dazzle, bring up the stakes, when I think the emotional stakes were enough. I hated the action sequences. They were shot well. They worked by themselves, but they just absolutely bled the energy out of this movie. So, I don't know. I liked this movie because, like I said, it's well shot. The emotional stuff mostly works. It's just the movie kept going out of its way to make it so that I couldn't love this movie. And it sucks because all of the ingredients were here for this to be an easy, like, 5-star movie. It just isn't. So I'm a recommend, but like, if Jim, you're on the light side of not recommend, I'm on the light side of recommend. Like, I think it's worth watching, but only if like there's not another compelling thing in your queue that you haven't gotten to yet.
Wow. That's interesting. I think we ended up kind of in the same place, but for totally different reasons. And we'll talk about that more.
Yeah.
Brad, what, let's see where you come in.
Well,
there's not much room in the middle.
I mean, I'm pretty good at sandwiching myself.
We can squeeze between right
two
in there,
two hotties. I mean, I can make room for myself. Man, I wanted to like this movie more than I did, guys. I really did. But I've been internally referring to this movie as Bad Astra. It just wasn't great for me, and there's a few reasons why. One, this movie reminds me a lot of two other movies, but it wasn't as good as either of them. And those movies are Gravity and Tree of Life, and I really hated Tree of Life, so that's saying something. But it's like those two movies had a baby, right? Like, the fucking narration in this movie just bothers the shit out of, like, it's trying to be so poetic and so, like, you know.
You mean stylistically,
yes,
right?
Yes,
those two movies.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. And I felt like it tried to take the most interesting pieces of both movies and weave them together and failed spectacularly at doing that. I also think that Liv Tyler, really, in this movie? First of all,
was crazy.
Her character, totally pointless, useless, and
she has perfected the astronaut stay-at-home wife.
Ready? She also has the astronaut stay-at-home wife face. Are you ready for it? You in listener land won't be able to see it, but here we go.
Brad, you nailed that. Let's have some animal crackers.
Fuck. Like, I don't even know why she had to be in this movie. What she brought to this movie, I don't think she really brought anything to this movie. But I think we may have lost Jim. Jim is frozen on my screen.
He's frozen on mine too.
Yeah. And he's making a really goofy face where he's frozen.
No, it's wonderful. In fact, hold on.
We got to screenshot that. That's amazing.
Yeah. Sorry, Jim.
That's going to be his new profile picture. Any event, hopefully he'll be back with us shortly. Hopefully he'll be able to reconnect. But yeah, I wanted to like this movie more than I did. It wasn't really that great for me. I don't know if I'm like squarely between you two, Will. Yep, and Jim just dropped off, so hopefully he'll be right back. But for people who are like on the fence, should I see this? Should I not? I mean, visually it's cool. Sound-wise, if you can see it in a big theater with big booming sound, I mean, that can be kind of fun. It's still in like the big like DFX theaters here, Limax, XD, you know, whatever you call it. This hasn't actually been a great couple weeks for movie releases. So Ad Astra is still hanging around in the big theaters. So I would say if you want like cool visuals and booming sound, this could be fun to check out. I just, you know, wouldn't go in with high expectations that this is going to be like a Gravity caliber film or a 2001 Space Odyssey caliber film. It's really just Brad Pitt chasing after his dad in space. There you go. Done. So, yeah.
I think what works so well about James Gray as a writer and a director is I think that he's able to play out these like sort of, you know, soulful exploration stories pretty effectively. You know, Jim mentioned The Lost City of Z. You've got The Immigrant from 2013, which I absolutely adored at the time, and it's one of those ones that like you love and then you forget about. And so just in sort of like getting ready for this episode, I was like, oh yeah, I liked that. I need to go back and rewatch it. Mm-hmm. But here it's, again, I think it's the narration, and I think it's the fact that there's so much other crap that's layered on top of it that you don't get a chance to play these explorations. You know, and I don't want to compare them too heavily because I don't, but the, what you mentioned, like the Malick film, mm-hmm. Tree of Life. And I think when Malick is at his best, his stuff does have a lyrical poetry, and he can, because he's really good at that style when he's at his best, he can indulge in those types of things. And I don't think that it worked here because the lyrical poetry of Brad Pitt's, not Brad Harrison, of Brad
Thank you for clarifying.
Yeah, I just realized it's like I'm talking to Brad about Brad. But like the, air quotes, lyrical poetry that Brad Pitt has in his narration wasn't incredibly effective. Like, right. I think that, if going the other route, if like they throw out my advice of getting rid of the narration and they stick with it, but if they had something that was stronger, something that hit a little harder, something that was more beautiful, whatever it happened to be, then I could probably say, I'm on board with
right.
this. But that's the thing. Like it wasn't incredibly effective.
Yeah. Well, and that's the whole like setup of this film, right? It's like Brad Pitt is like out to go find his father and like solve this mystery. And neither of those two things, for me at least, satisfyingly pay off. And so at the end of the film, I'm just kind of left feeling like, why did I just spend 2 hours watching this? Like, but I think there's a lot we need to maybe unpack in spoilers so we can kind of talk about this more in depth. I think so too. Yeah, we're kind of spacewalking around a few things. I tried. It wasn't very good. But
you know what? This has not been our best episode for puns, and that's okay. Maybe like Brad Pitt, we've set our gaze on a galaxy that is maybe a little less populated by puns, and we are on a rocket ship to that place now.
Or maybe we just need
probably not.
Maybe we just need to go into space hibernation for 10 months, and when we wake up, our pun abilities will be back. But yeah,
I have a feeling when we do probably Joker next week, we're going to be back to being like punny jerks again.
I'm sure we will.
Yeah.
I'm sure we will. Hey, Jim is back with us. Welcome back, babe.
I think I'm back. Thanks, guys.
Welcome back.
Hotel Wi-Fi.
Yeah,
Gotta love it.
Hotel Wi-Fi. Kick me the fuck out. All right. I was talking. You guys probably moved on to the end of the movie already.
We actually just closed the show. We did plugs and wrapped up. I'm gonna go get a hot dog from Sonic. Did you want
nice.
We just did our top
Bye,
10
everybody.
films of 2019 episode. Like we just really wrapped up, Jim.
Actually, we just wrapped up our non-spoiler discussion almost. So This is your last chance, babe. Did you have something non-spoilery you wanted to add before we segue?
Yeah, I just want to get back. Will, the movie I think was about some kind of journey that the character was on. I never saw any. It didn't make its character arc clear to me. It just didn't. And then for a movie that's hanging itself on that and having a few other scenes, which we're going to talk about soon, like thrown in kind of as space adventure kind of stuff, some of which was goofy, some of which I thought worked pretty well. It seemed like it had to do that because I was really hoping for some kind of emotional payoff that we just never got.
Yeah.
The whole thing, especially in the third act, just did not make any sense. For a movie that was about character, that's how the movie lost me, and that's why it fell on
no character.
Well, I mean, it had a character. It had several characters, but like some of them were basically ciphers. I mean, one of the main characters in the movie is basically a cipher for a character, and we'll talk about that in spoilers. It just didn't do its thing for me. It did. I know what it wanted to do, and I think people are maybe giving it credit for what it was trying to do instead of actually what it did. So, for me.
I think that it's one of those movies where it nailed the landing for a setup that it fumbled. And I think that's the problem for me, at least, is like there was some good stuff at the end that I don't feel that it earned.
I mean, here's the thing. You can run into the end zone, but if the football is like 8 yards behind you on the ground, it doesn't count.
Yeah.
So
exactly.
Also, can we just say 10 years ago, Brad would not have been able to make a sports joke like that. Now I can.
Right.
So, thanks, Jim.
Exactly.
Good job. 6 points.
All right.
7 points.
Move the sports ball.
Good.
All right. Look, we're going to spoilers on this bitch. It's happening. It's happening right now. Will's going to put something in the live chat. So if you need that heads up, boom, there it is. Will, thank you so much for doing that. Much appreciated. If you are listening to the magic of digital tape delay on iTunes, Apple Music, Spotify, Stitcher Radio, whatever your chosen vessel for devouring podcasts may be, feel free to use the time index in the show notes. Skip ahead to some plugs if you haven't seen Ad Astra and you don't want to be spoiled. Otherwise, if you're listening live or digital tape delay, whatever, and you don't care about spoilers, hang on tight. Here we go. Spoilers are officially fair game.
Guys, did you know that in space there are pirates on the moon? There are crazy Norwegian space monkeys. There are what was the other thing? Oh, there are manholes with underground sewers on Mars. Apparently, underground waterways.
But they only run under the shuttle, which has a direct access point into the ship.
To the rocket motor. Right.
Yeah.
Oh boy. Yeah.
The best part of the Pirates on the Moon was it reminded me of the second episode of Futurama where they go to the moon and it's turned into like a theme park and there's like animatronic like we're whalers of the moon. Like I was singing like in my head like during that whole scene, we're pirates on the moon. The whole time.
You know what's
that
crazy?
Whole thing depressed me.
I wanted to see more of the pirates on the moon. That was the most interesting part of the whole fucking movie for me. Was like that world building. I'm like, whoa, they've colonized part of the moon. There's pirates on the dark side. Like, what's going on?
But it depressed the fuck out of me to see like a Sbarro sign in a fucking moon strip mall. You know what I mean?
You saw the Applebee's
For me, it was
there?
Applebee's, right? Well, it was the fucking Applebee's.
I'm right back. I'm right back at the mall in Tucson again. I mean, that's what it felt like.
Listen.
Hey, Brad, this means if we ever fly to the moon together, we can get our 2 for $20 meal, share dessert.
There you go.
And they
go.
And they let little kids up on the moon. I couldn't believe that.
I mean,
like, oh, that's it. I'm out.
They could punt the little kids out an airlock and it would be fine. But at least they had a Dunkin' Donuts, guys. They had a Dunkin' Donuts on the moon. You know, Will, unfortunately, we can't.
Gotta get your Dunkin'.
We can't get the amazing kolaches or clobber stinkies, as they're actually called, like you can in Austin. So we have to get our kolache fix from Dunkin'. So, babe, if we ever go to the moon, I mean, moon kolaches, lunar kolaches.
Right,
could be
right.
Yeah, I mean, so I was probably less into the moon pirate stuff because the monkey attack and the I'm fighting astronauts to commandeer their ship scenes. Those 3 action sequences felt for me like they kind of came out of nowhere and then went back to nowhere. Mm-hmm. And so it's one of those things where they felt like they were really good scenes from a completely different movie. Mm-hmm.
I could see that.
Right.
Will, you've seen Apocalypse Now, right?
Right.
Where what's his name, Captain whatever, played by Martin Sheen, is going upriver to find this crazy Colonel Kurtz who's poisoning the war effort or whatever, and he's got to go take him out. And lo and behold, we have what really amounted to Apocalypse Now in space in this movie. And in Apocalypse Now, as they're going up that river, right, they encounter, they get attacked by some people in a village. They come across these people in this boat who they think are transporting weapons, but all they have are like chickens and stuff like that. And so I think it's just I think he was just trying to kind of emulate those kind of movies where someone's on a journey and they have all these what's the word I'm looking for? Kind of like all these tribulations, you know what I mean, on the way, on his journey. None of them, especially in this movie, really relate to the reason or the final conclusion of this movie. They're all kind of disconnected, and I agree. I mean, the space pirates thing was kind of weird. Like, I'm like asking myself, where did these guys come from? But the monkey scene kind of unnerved the fuck out of me. That scared me a little bit.
It's like
it was totally unexpected.
Yeah, I mean, we ended up with, you mentioned Apocalypse Now. At least those moments felt like we're going through the jungle. We're going into this, like, the heart of darkness. And these are the things that the jungle and its people are throwing at us. And for here, I don't necessarily know that, like, face-eating monkeys is, like, what I would immediately think of as, like, a natural threat of space. Like, especially when if you want to give him some trials and tribulations, you have 3 different times in this movie where an electromagnetic pulse goes off. And, like, it's right as he's about to land something. All 3 times, it's, like, at the worst moment. And he just, like, flips a couple of buttons and goes, like, wait. Okay, we're good now. Like, there's some, like, you could have had some tension built out of those moments if you wanted to. Like, really built, those, like, what's the big threat of this journey? Well, the pulse itself. That's why he's going there to begin with. And this is a direct threat caused through the story, through his father. And so if that had been more of his trouble, I think it would have tied more closely to the theme and would have made us feel more like, what the fuck? This dude's doing electromagnetic pulse. Pitt, go get him, go figure this shit out at the end. I think that's a huge missed opportunity that, like, with the script itself is sort of throwing in these extra things.
Yeah, I mean, I felt like from a stakes perspective, like the pulses really weren't that big of a deal. Like, I know news reports, people are dying, electromagnetic pulses or whatever, but, like, was it really a big enough thing that, like, he had to, like, go out into space and try and stop it? Like, yes, okay, maybe, but, like, question for you. I'm not an electrical engineer. I don't know about these things. Somebody here might. Is there any way to, like, shield electronics from E EMPs?
They probably just didn't have the
Uh-oh. I think we lost Jim again.
Uh-oh. I'll finish Jim's sentence, assuming that he's off, because I think he was in the middle of saying they probably don't have like either the technology or the time to do it, and that's probably fair to say. Like I think that the film itself sets up the EMPs as a threat. People died. It's affecting equipment. So if we're just gonna roll with that and say it's the threat, okay, cool. I can roll with that pretty fine. But the problem is that the film did a much better job of telling us the EMPs were a threat than letting us feel that they were a threat.
Right.
That opening sequence, we got to see that.
Cool.
Like
that was cool.
Yeah. The EMP causes the space tower to collapse. He's following, also, that was really good. Yeah. That was stakes directly caused by the father, which leads to this emotional journey. So, but the monkey especially bothered me because literally a character that we didn't care about because we'd just been introduced to him goes on this side journey, gets his face eaten by a monkey. Brad Pitt's just like, oh, that sucks, and then brings him back to the ship. Yeah. It's like they basically, the captain of this ship that he was on was sort of redshirted, right?
Yeah, totally. Brad Pitt was, to that captain, I don't know. He tried to save him. He tried to help, right? But the captain, I don't know. He was more interested in, having a dick measuring contest. So, I guess you die when those things happen. Anyway, we're trying to get Jim back, but hotel Wi-Fi, being what hotel Wi-Fi is, it's entirely possible. We may not, but that's okay. We're probably going to wrap this discussion up in a few minutes anyway. I don't know that there's a ton more to talk about here, but let's just skip forward to the end. So he finds his dad. Oh, look, Tommy Lee Jones is still alive. Oh, look, he looks exactly the same as he did 25 years ago in this video or whatever. Obviously, he found some kind of space aging magic there. Will, did you think it was at all earned, like, when his dad, like, agrees to suddenly leave with him? I mean, I know the dad ends up, like, killing himself or whatever, but, like, didn't that seem like a bit of a quick turnaround for him to go from, like, no, this is my home, to, sure, I'll put on a spacesuit and let's walk outside. It's cool.
Yeah, I think that's exactly the problem with it, because the actual scene itself is one of my favorite scenes of the movie. Like that, where they're having that conversation about like, look, I've got to keep doing this, son, because I need all of this to have been worth something. I need to know that there's life out there. And Brad Pitt says that line that I think absolutely killed it for me, was just, the absolute like thesis of the film, which is that, maybe we're alone and we have to take care of each other type thing. I think that that's a really, really cool message and a really cool story, especially for the trajectory these two characters were on. What I needed to have happen was chop out some of the action-y stuff, get us to the Tommy Lee Jones character a little sooner, and let them have more time. Honestly, if the last third of the movie was just the two of them fucking talking to each other, I'm cool with that.
Totally would have been okay.
But we have all this action stuff, and then they have this abridged conversation, and then Tommy Lee Jones changes his mind, then changes his mind again, and kind of fucks off of the story. And then we have this like overly long like escape the explosion sequence there at the end too.
Yeah.
Which all of that stuff again reeks of, we don't think people want heady sci-fi. We need to have, Gravity was popular, so let's have some of that like action shit in space. And it felt, man, I hate using this, like, because I don't know if this is actually the case. It felt a little cowardly, like in terms like there's such a strong story there, and they just veer away from it.
Yeah.
I mean, get to the Tommy Lee Jones character sooner. Let them have more time hashing things out. Whether or not they come to consensus or not, that's okay too. The important part is that they have those conversations, they have those moments, and they get to like make their journeys worthwhile.
I have a question for you.
Uh-huh.
Actually, let me do it this way. William Lindis, are you ready for your post-movie psych eval?
Thank you. Yes. The psych eval stuff was interesting and went nowhere.
Right.
Because it's another one of those things where all through this film we have this guy who, I think each one of his psych evaluations is a little bit less firm than the last one, and that was interesting to watch.
Yeah.
Like, this is a guy who, the closer he got to the object of his journey, the more and more afraid that he got. And then he has this moment where he fails the exam, and you're like, oh, what does this mean? And he just says, oh, okay, never mind, I'm just going to do it my own way. It meant nothing.
Yeah.
It meant nothing. Like, and so it was another one of those things. He gets back to Earth, and they're like, I don't know what the next sequence was. I mean, he was just being reviewed for a psych evaluation, but realistically, like, if he wasn't in a brig, he needed to be, because this dude snuck onto a ship and murdered 3 people.
Like, yay for saving the universe from, EMP pulses, but like, yeah, you still killed people and broke the law.
Well, it'd be like the people that he murdered were the people that were on the way to stop the EMP pulse.
Right.
Like, it's like if I were to like kill 3 firemen on the way into a fire so that I can drag someone out. Like, yeah, I was a hero, but I mean, they were already going to do that, and I just killed them. Like, he's not the hero of this story.
Yeah.
And that's okay. That's okay. Like, if the story had really wrapped up showing him, I don't want to say crazy, because that's not what I'm going at, but like, if we had seen him more psychologically fried, like this had tried him quite a bit, and we had seen him go through all this stuff and make some really morally nebulous things, and seeing some sort of consequences, either external or even himself. Like, if that final monologue was, in the end, we can only look out for each other, and I lost track of that.
Yeah. And
all through this, I put myself before everyone else. Like, if there was something like that, I think we would have had some consequences for him, failing the psychological exam, but we didn't.
Yeah.
It was just there.
Really wasn't any of that, So, hey, he's back.
Welcome back, Jim.
I'm on my, and then I had to go to a different device.
Did you?
I did, yeah. So.
Well,
and I'm not on Wi-Fi. I'm using real data. So.
Well, I think we're about to move into some pretty quick plugs, and wrap things up. So, but Jim, last chance for spoilery thoughts. Do you have anything?
No. Where the movie jumped the shark for me was when he jumped on the rocket, leaving Mars. Like, the countdown through the sewers and up next to the nozzle of the rocket engine, and he jumps on as the countdown hits like 3 seconds, and somehow manages to ride the rocket up off of Mars and then into the spaceship, and then he surprises the crew. It takes the whole crew on. I think the movie kind of jumped the shark right there for me. And like I said, if the movie had any payoff at all at the end, the whole movie we're having this anticipation. Is he going to find his father? What's going to happen when he finds his father? He finds his father and has what seems like 45 minutes with the guy, and where the guy says, well, I didn't really care so much, and I'm just up here, my crew. And I just didn't really, I felt nothing in that transaction, nothing at all. And then it's over. He's speeding back to Earth and makes it back. I just didn't find any redemption, nothing. It just, like I said, it fell flat. And maybe I missed something. I don't know. But I expected if that was the crux of the movie, that relationship, I expected a little bit more from it at the end.
I think that sums up our feelings about this movie as a whole. We expected.
Yes.
Yeah. All right. Well, we're going to go ahead and move on to some plugs as we look to wrap this show up. Sorry, Ad Astra. See you later. Bye. Will, what have you got this week? And, of course, the Fantastic Fest show will be going up. We'll have folks, hopefully, will be listening in on that. But was there a specific plug you have this week in addition to that show?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, keep an eye on the feed for that. We'll be sharing it on the normal channels. But the movie that I'd really like to point everyone towards is something that. So I've been trying. I've been on this doing this weekly LGBTQ film watching project because yay queer cinema, and we need to make sure that we support it. And as we move into the month of October, the spooky month, I've definitely
I know what's coming.
You may not, because
Okay.
I'm gonna
Different
zig
one.
instead of zag. Yeah, you're probably thinking I'm gonna plug Stranger by the Lake, and the only reason I'm
Right.
not is I think I've plugged it on this show before, just granted a few years back. But yeah, Stranger by the Lake is amazing. But the one I'm gonna point people towards is one is a movie from 2014 called Lyle, and it is a 65-minute get in, get out little story about this lesbian couple. In fact, the lead is played by Gabby Hoffman, who you might remember if you've watched Girls, and I know she had a part in like Wild and An Obvious Child. So I mean, she's someone who's been around the block, though isn't necessarily a household name. But so this lesbian couple moves into this new apartment. They've got their really young, like 1-ish-year-old baby, and then tragedy strikes. And I won't tell you what the terms of this tragedy is, but in the aftermath of that, this main character starts to realize that there's some sort of weird and possibly sinister things going on with some of the people in her apartment complex. I won't give away kind of what those things are. There's a lot of people use another film as it's sort of like this to talk about it, but even that I think is spoilerific. But Lyle, it's on like if you have Amazon or iTunes or Canopy or any of those things, you can watch it for either for free or for cheap, and you absolutely should, especially if you're looking for good, creepy Halloween themed LGBTQ films. It's called Lyle, Lyle.
I have one very important question about this film. Well,
Yes.
do we see any Halloweeny?
There is no weenie in this. In fact, there's only one male character in it. It's Michael Shea, which was interesting because this was before he did Saturday Night Live. He's one of the head writers and the anchor on Weekend Update. And he plays one of the friends in this. It's like, oh shit, that's the dude. Yeah.
There you go.
But you don't see his little Shea.
Can't have everything, I guess. All right, Jim, how about you? What have you got this week?
Haven't gotten to see a lot, but we did see another new release called Hustlers last weekend. And, I was really surprised by this movie. So going into the last week, I'm like, oh, I'm going to see this awesome space movie. I'm so excited to see this. I can't wait. And I was let down by that. And then Hustlers, like the trailer didn't do a lot for me, but I'm like, let's check it out. I hear the buzz is pretty good. And it surprised me. I was really, it's certainly not a perfect movie, but Constance Wu and Jennifer Lopez are great in this, as is Julia Stiles, I think, in a much more subdued role. I mean, Constance Wu and Jennifer Lopez get a lot more to do. But yeah, I really like this movie. I liked it kind of plays as a kind of Ocean's 13 kind of movie, with women who are sex workers working in the entertainment industry, like in a dance club or whatever. And they eventually get to scheme and try to make more money. And what I liked about it was the relationship aspect of this movie. I love the friendship. This movie had a really good personal relationship, character relationship in it. It also had an unexpected family type relationship in it, like a unconventional family type that was portrayed in this movie, which I loved it for. So yeah, I think if you really can do without seeing a very dry space movie, go check out Hustlers. I think it's worth, if you haven't seen it, I think it's definitely worth seeing. So check it out. It's called Hustlers.
Co-signed. I think Hustlers is a better movie than Ad Astra.
Yeah.
I think it is too, but I didn't like either movie very much, so I don't know what that says.
Aww.
Well, I'm glad that you enjoyed it as much as you did, babe. I will say, J-Lo was a high point of that movie for me. Typically, I don't like J-Lo in movies, but she was good.
It was interesting. She carried a lot of the weight, and I thought she did it really well. She made me stand up and say, wow. I mean, she's got it.
And they made her ass look 20 years younger. I don't know how they did that. That's some Captain America Steve Rogers bullshit right there, but they did it.
Yeah, you did get a lot of I got the feeling the movie pandered a little bit to to maybe to a little to that side, but giving it credit, it was about characters who work in a business and
Sure.
that's their business, right? To show their body. So we got to see a lot of body in that movie.
We did.
Yeah.
And there was also a big group of women who were at this movie directly in front of us. One of whom was ordering a pizza in the middle of the movie, and I asked her to
on her phone.
So, I live and breathe Alamo Draft House here, and so when I think ordering a pizza, like my first thought is just like, oh, cool, they quietly raised the order card.
No.
But no, she's
Domino's app,
fucking Domino's.
Domino's app on her phone. I'm watching her pick her fucking toppings, and I'm like, can you please turn that phone off? And she like puts it away, and then she pulls it back out a couple minutes, and she's like picking her toppings again. Yeah. And I'm like, please put your phone away. And so she stuffs it away. Well, anyway, we're walking out after the movie, and this big group of girls is out in front talking. And this woman goes, did you hear that guy behind me yelling at me to put my phone away?
Did you hear that rude guy?
Oh, that rude guy. That's right. Yeah. So
you're rude.
Oh my God.
So I was in a very passive aggressive mood, and we're like 10 feet from them. So to Jim, I say, did you see that rude woman ordering a pizza on her phone and picking her toppings? I don't know if they heard me, but it felt good.
She was putting pineapple on her pizza. What the hell is up with that?
You should have called her.
She had onions, jalapenos, chicken, and pepperoni. Who fucking mixes?
Launch her into the moon. That's untenable.
If I can read
pepperoni and chicken,
if I can read the toppings you're putting on your pizza, your phone should be off in the movie theater. Anyway, I think I just used up all my plug time talking about that. But
is your plug for like everyone please be polite and don't order pizza in the middle of a movie?
That's totally what my plug is. No, my plug is actually something I'm super pumped about. I've been waiting for a long time. They just released, as of today, a complete Blu-ray collection of Avatar: The Last Airbender and The Legend of Korra. And it's all been, remasterized. And it looks pretty fucking awesome. A friend of mine and I have been rewatching Avatar: The Last Airbender. He hasn't seen it yet, so it's his first time through. But I'm like watching the version that I have, and I mean, like, it needs cleaned up. Like, the animation, looks really messy compared to some of the stills that I've seen from this Blu-ray release. So if you're fans of either Avatar: The Last Airbender or Legend of Korra, this is the definitive set to get. It looks better than it has ever looked before. So check it out. If you haven't seen either of those series yet, what the fuck are you waiting for? They're amazing. I know technically they're TV, not movies, although they feel like giant movies to me, so I think it counts.
They were adapted into we'll call it a movie.
Pre-order now from bradanime.com.
Bradazon.com.
Crunchy Brad.
Anyway, hey, it'd been a couple weeks since we got a chance to hang out like this and do this. So glad to
feels good
be back in the saddle.
Feels good.
Indeed. Just want to say a big thank you to the folks that were hanging out with us in the live chat tonight. Thanks for tuning in. Thank you for those who are listening via digital tape delay. We, of course, love you folks just as much and appreciate you hanging out with us during your commute, during your time on the elliptical bike. Is that a thing, an elliptical bike? I don't even know if that's a real thing or not, but wherever you listen to the show, we appreciate you. Jim, where can people talk to you online between now and our next show?
Tweet at me at Twitter at JJPOutWest. It's all one word, JJPOutWest. Or find me on Facebook under my name, Jim Pugliafico. That's where to find me. Oh, and a big shout out, thanks to the hotel Wi-Fi people for tonight's show. Thank you very much.
Today's show brought to you by the letters CRAPOUT.
Today's show brought to you by...
Exactly right. Will, where can people talk to you?
Look, you can find me on Twitter. I'm at whatever cove on there. You can find me on Facebook. Just look for William Lindis. Send me a message so I know who you are. You can also find me on Letterboxd. It's where I log and review every movie that I've watched since 2012. So I would love to talk movies with you there as well.
All right, awesome. And you can find me on Facebook. Just search for Brad Harris. Again, please send a message first. The spam bots are getting smarter and smarter. So this week's passphrase is Banana Boat Rama. If you message me with Banana Boat Rama, I know you aren't a bot, and I know you're from the show. So say hi. You can also find me on Twitter at iBradPro. Thanks so much for hanging out with us, folks. We'll see you next time. Goodbye, everybody.
Bye.
Bye.